Test, test.
I thought that was one of those neck braces at first glance.
Guess are you wet sheets cutting or wet dog?
Not by much.
Well, it'll be worth it when it's three.
Piece of slate cushion.
Mine's all soft. Two of them's not they don't hit the soft spots. Well, the little one doesn't fit. She's like,
How are you? I buckled my first knee and I really want to replace it with a new one.
this or that.
Well, I just can't stand the leather because you try with it, you know.
Oh.
Every once in a while they kind of have. I've seen
Test, test, test.
you know, they're doing that with their steering assist.
Test, test, test.
And it's kind of embarrassing to see how much they spend on it.
No, I would say it's really well put together.
Pizza looking easy? What's that? Pizza love?
Test, test.
Yeah, I tried that day we ordered.
Test, test.
Pretty decent. It's good. It's good. I like kind of a fan of Racanelli's over in St. Louis a little bit better. New York style pizza. You got one in you got one in Central West End up by Nichols, and they got one in Kirkwood on Western Road. Good place. I never got a chance to go there, but for me,
Yeah, they're good.
do the pledge. All right. Got the Finance Committee. Everybody want to have a chance to speak. If the public wants to speak, please do so in a fashion that is good for everyone, and don't call out anybody individually. Call us as a forum, as a council or a committee. And I guess with that, we'll get it started with Sandy with the roll call.
Thank you. Nathan Parchman,
Here.
Jessica Lott. Here. Chris Monroe. Stephanie Small here. Here. James Campbell.
Here.
Andrea Foney.
Here.
Okay, we have a forum.
All right, thank you. Can we get approval of the minutes from the September 25th, 2023 meeting, please?
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, we'll move over to 2.1 ordinance amending chapter 121 video gaming, and I believe,
We need 2 minutes. We have the September meeting and the November.
oh, that's correct, okay. So we'll move on to 1.4, approval of the minutes for November 27th. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Second. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that one passes too. Sorry about that, Sandy.
That's okay, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to 2.1, ordinance amending chapter 121, video gaming. I believe that's Grant.
That'll be missed, yes. Okay, so we're proposing a change and an update to our ordinance about video gaming terminals in the city of O'Fallon. As we continue to implement and administer these over the years, we kind of work with some businesses around town, and we have discovered a loophole within our ordinance. It has never been used by any business or anybody in town, but nonetheless, as we noticed it, we wanted to close that. And so the main change in this ordinance, if you back up, when we implemented our gaming ordinance, it requires the establishment to maintain 50% of their revenue from food and beverage tax. It's more or less to prevent like the gaming parlors to hop in town. Within that ordinance, it stated if you're new to town and you didn't have the right amount of data to show us to prove your 50% of revenue, we gave you a grace period of 6 months to have the gaming terminals, and then after 6 months, you came back into the city of O'Fallon, and we'd evaluate your revenue. And so, again, as we went through administering some of this, we had one business that hinted at it but did not implore it, that they would get the 6 months grace period, not be able to show 50% revenue, change ownership, change the LLC, reapply and pay the gaming fees, which is $1,000 terminal, and then get 6 more months grace period, and they would continue to do this over and over and over again. So we did change the ordinance language with the help of Misty McDonald and Todd Fleming to prevent that. No longer can somebody do that, and so it gives us a lot better ability to look at the revenue as it's coming in real time and make decisions on whether or not they're meeting the criteria of the ordinance. Other small changes are it restricts the use of us allowing gaming terminals and truck stops because the Illinois gaming law does allow gaming terminals in truck stops. So essentially a business could potentially get zoning for a truck stop in the county and then petition to come to the city of O'Fallon with those gaming terminals in place. And by our ordinance, we potentially would have allowed them. So we did remove that or work to prevent that. So if you have any questions, this is an ordinance that we continue to update as we move along and kind of the business atmosphere changes on these. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, Sandy, anything you want to add to that before we go to questions?
No?
All right, does anybody on the committee have questions about this one? Council? Todd?
Yeah, I noticed there was one other change to the proration of the license fee. Mm-hmm. Was there a specific reason for that?
So as we went through the proration, it is $1,000 a terminal fee. And so our ordinance states that no license fee would be prorated if removed. So we thought it was consideration of the same in the reverse.
So if somebody, because I think it said it was April, if I remember correctly. So if somebody in March asked for a license, we charge them, let's say they have 5 terminals, 5,000, then in April, they'd have to pay another 5,000.
That is correct.
That seems a little harsh. Not harsh enough. Okay. We don't do that with liquor license or any other license.
No, the gaming terminal fees, the only one that I believe right now that we have no proration on.
Ross?
So my question came up in a conversation a year or something ago, and it's about if a business actually has the gaming license and everything's, you know, on the up and up, and they've got more than 50% or whatever, and they change ownership, I didn't see anything in there that allows them to keep, or they need to then, because they could change their MO. I mean, they theoretically could change what they do. Well, I guess they could without changing ownership too, but we don't have anything in there that says that the gaming license can be transferred or not transferred on the change of an ownership. And we may want to add a snippet, whether it does or it doesn't, however we decide, but at least cover that base while we're updating it.
It does say they can't transfer the ownership.
Correct. The ownership does not transfer. Now, what does transfer is the liquor license zoning that's on the establishment. We're going back 5 or 6 years when this ordinance was put in place. The will of the council was they wanted fraternal organizations, non-for-profits to have a lower fee on license. That's why you see $1,000 per terminal. Then the state law changed and increased it from 5 to 6 terminals allowable. We updated at that time. I'm speaking for council's decision-making 6 years ago that they really wanted to put the high fees low on fraternals and non-for-profits. But then as we have talked to a lot of our neighboring communities, unfortunately, there can be a black market of sorts on gaming terminal licenses. Particularly, that's why we try to shy away from a quota on a cap of number of licenses and on a transfer of licenses.
Just to make sure that I said it clearly, I know that it said that you can't transfer the gaming license, but if you own Grant's Restaurant, and I buy Grant's Restaurant, does the 6 months prior, the food sales, all that, can I come in and have that, apply for, get my own gaming license, or do I have to show another period of time with food sales? And so then I lose those games as a new owner until I can reestablish, even if they've had 2 years of good standing.
That is correct.
Okay, and is that the way that we want it? If
Protect yourself from changing the venue.
I get it, I'm just saying that a potential buyer of a business came to me a year ago, I think this is when we talked about it a while back, and said, I would like to buy X business. They already have games. I'm not changing anything. We're gonna sell hopefully the same amount of food, the same amount of everything. But if I then can't have games for 2 years, then I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna lose that revenue. Is that our intent? Is that what we want?
And that's the decision of the council. I could speak a little bit to when the ordinance was in place, that the focus was that the gaming terminals exception is the fraternities and non-for-profit agencies would be only a supplement to their income and not the whole reason for purchase of a property. Again, that was kind of the just direction given to us years ago.
I will probably make a motion to add something in, whether it's seconded or not, as opposed to a business closing its doors. If we have a business that's established, that's had their gaming for a while, they've met all the criteria, and I want to get out of the business, as opposed to it closing, if somebody comes in and takes it over, I think they should be able to then keep the games. And if they don't meet the criteria after that, then, we have in place how to take it away from them. But if somebody wants to sell their business or whatever. Yeah, so I intend to make a motion at some point, if it gets to that point, that we add something in about grandfathering a business to a new owner if it has met all the criteria.
Well, that's what, to your point, just to think this through, you know, when you were talking, like an established business, so what does that mean?
So let's just say.
Like, what is that
I don't have
definition?
any information, but let's just say Shooters, right? They've had their license for, I don't know how many years, but long enough, right? They sell plenty of food and meet all the criteria. The owner of Shooters wants to retire to Florida. Ross comes along and I want to buy Shooters. Instead of having the games removed, I think that we should have something in there saying the games should be able to transfer. I have to then apply, I get it, I can't absorb whoever the owners, I can't take their license, but if the owner gives me 6 months and I go get my gaming license, and then I want to keep those games in there, I don't have to then go another 2 years.
Right, and our current ordinance reads that way. So how do I, so there's two processes that go on at all times during a gaming terminal administration. There's the zoning, and then there's the actual approval and licensure of the gaming terminals. And so the zoning has to be a planned use with alcohol, pour license specifically. It has to be in good standing for 2 years for that then ownership to come and apply for the city for a gaming license. So let's just use Shooters for example. The ownership of Shooters wants to sell, and you know, obviously I have Tom Vorse sitting right in front of me, so I'm going to call on him. Tom Vorse goes to purchase it. It's not like he has to wait 2 more years to then apply for a gaming terminal. He would purchase Shooters, then he would come to the city and say, hey, Shooters has had a gaming, or an alcohol license, pour license, in good standing for over 2 years. Then Tom Vorse, as the new ownership, would apply for a gaming terminal license. Then it goes through the process with the state of Illinois, and it goes through our process.
So it doesn't have to wait 2 years because it's already an established business. Only a new business has to wait 2 years.
Now, what is not permitted is Tom could not buy Shooters, then close Shooters down and move someplace else and say, I'm moving Shooters, the business, and I'm keeping those gaming terminals. That is prohibited.
Okay, so the reason why this came up, and the reason why I'm saying it is, there was a potential buyer for, this is before, well, I don't want to give somebody's personal business, so let me just leave it at that.
So not to get too much in the weeds, but does this change whether it's a stock purchase or an assets purchase? So for example, if the person's purchasing Shooters LLC, I don't know what they actually are, but let's say the legal name Shooters LLC, they purchase the LLC, which means they're purchasing all their assets, all their liabilities, everything. Or what can be done is they purchase just the assets. In other words, they create their own entity, maybe New Shooters LLC.
Change the name.
Or even leave the name, but this is a whole new entity. So with the state, it's a new entity, the federal government's a new entity. Does that change? And the only reason I ask is because people do that on purpose to limit their liability, because they don't want any debt or anything that happened under the old ownership. But it does make a difference I think it might make a difference anyways, because technically they're not buying those licenses and everything because they're not transferable. If they're buying the lock, stock, and barrel of the business, then they are actually purchasing the licensing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that makes a difference in how we treat it.
Well, the devil's in the details, obviously. So if somebody were to buy just the name Shooters, but then change the LLC, they change the person under the dram shop insurance, they change the name of the liquor license, it's a new establishment, then the clock ticks. But again, if they keep Shooters there and it's still a bar and it's still had an active pour license for 2 years, and then there's a whole bunch of state criteria that we don't get into, the state does background checks on the individual whose name and liability it falls upon. And so they have much more overreach and oversight than we do. So they look at a lot of that stuff. But your question's a good one. I would say it's all the details, and it goes how far. If they're buying, I hate to just keep using Shooters, but it's right here. If they buy Shooters, it stays a bar. It's just the person that's calling the shots is different. there would probably be no change in action.
But if they created a whole new entity, they could keep the name all they want, but it's a whole new legal entity. Then,
They would still have to reapply for the
Right.
gaming license,
but
because
they
it's,
would have to wait the 2 years then, because it would.
no.
Because it's already established at that location,
So it's based on the location, not necessarily the name of the
because
business.
it's a zoning.
So you could change the name, and as long as the location stayed the same, then they're gonna waive basically the 2-year waiting period.
That's the city's ordinance is 2
Right.
years, yes.
Okay.
A location has to have a valid liquor license and a pour for 2 years before they can apply for a gaming license and apply for a rezoning for its planned use to allow gaming terminals.
So it's more based on the location than the actual entity.
Right, there's the two processes. There's the
Gotcha.
one that's a
Okay.
zoning process based on location, and there's a one that's more based on the actual license.
Because we had a situation where someone who had a liquor license at one location tried to move to a different location, and you say that that liquor license has been in good standing for 2 years, so can I get the gaming terminals at my new location immediately? And the answer was no, because it's on location, not on the liquor license holder, the individual.
We also had somebody that went by the example I was given, and the information they got at the time was different, but I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay.
I think the issue here, the crux of the issue is business valuation. And certainly when a business is sold, the value of that business needs to be established cleanly. And I think I'd like not to have the city get in the way of that process so that it would make it more difficult for people to buy and sell businesses within city limits.
Yeah, from a banking perspective, if you're looking at cash flow for a loan, I mean, you're not gonna be able to cash flow that, the slot machines or the machines there, so the gaming machines, that would go out of that, so that, like you said, would make it more difficult to value it, because it's gonna drop the value, because that's part of the cash flow, so.
Again, I think the purpose of the city council at the time this was done was they wanted to make it easier for the nonprofits to be able to have the machines, but they were not interested in making it easier for the commercial businesses, because they did not want a proliferation of gaming machines throughout the city. And so they leaned more towards making it harder for commercial businesses to get it and make it easier for our charitable organizations to get it. And so when you see things in the ordinance about difficulties in getting them, it was by design originally, so that it was harder to get one and that you couldn't come in here and find loopholes and get the machines easily and quickly. So if the council wants to make it easier for businesses to get gaming machines, that's your prerogative, but that was not the intent of the council at the time this was passed.
Correct, and the reason we have the 50% revenue rule is to prevent standalone gaming parlors, the ones that just they sell, pizza bagels and little bottles of wine.
I was here for that.
Tried not to say any names, but.
I was here for that, and I still agree to that, Mike. This isn't making it easier for a new location. This was keeping a place, again, using shooters as just an example. I have no inside information.
Right.
Keeping an established place viable in town if the owner wanted to sell. The cash flow, the income is, if you all of a sudden drop all that and they have to then go and go through
Yeah.
the whole
Well,
process.
again, so they wouldn't have to go through the rezoning process, they would just have to reapply for the gaming terminals. It's no different than if I bought a bar, and Tom, again, sorry, Tom, call you out. I buy a bar from Tom, he's not gonna keep his name under liability of I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna go through the process of getting the new liquor license, dram shop insurance. The process is the same for video gaming terminals. So they don't lose, that property doesn't lose any value saying that it can't have gaming terminals. It's just the new ownership has to come and apply for it and be approved.
Does the ordinance cover this example? Because
The one we just spoke of.
the individual that approached me said it doesn't, and they were told that they would have to go through the whole process again.
Yeah.
I want to start with the he said, but who's he, I don't know.
Sure.
Does the ordinance cover that situation so that there is no open to interpretation or gray area?
The ordinance covers, and that's how we administer it. I can't recall the particular situation. Hopefully, we can talk afterwards about it.
Alderman Van Hook has a question.
Hold on, I can't run the computer and talk. Eric, you can talk now.
Grant, quick question, and I'm going to use Shooter since it's been thrown out there. They obviously
And
have
Tom
a
Voice, if you don't mind.
successful business. What if they move location, say they want to expand to do even more? They have to start out without the poker machines or the video gaming?
Well, that depends. So if they were to move in location, yes. So if Shooters wanted to open up a Shooters 2 and it's across on the other side of town, yes, that's a new, there'd be a lot of steps depending on the details. If there's no active liquor license or the zoning's not appropriate, it'd be a zoning process. Let's say Shooters buys First Street, then that's a different process. So each one's a little different.
But what if they shut down, actually, the current location, they decide they want to go somewhere bigger within O'Fallon, and they move out of that location completely, not run two businesses, but actually move out, and say fill a vacant restaurant or something we have open now, they have to go back and start the 2-year process over again?
Yes, the ownership of Shooters would have to go if they went into a facility that did not have a active liquor license in good standing for 2 years.
Okay, I understand, and I remember a lot of the conversation that took place, but, you know, if you have a business that's wanting to go and expand, that would seem to be a detriment, a little bit.
Yeah, and I agree with Eric, but I would put it even like a different point. Let's say if there was a fire or something that burned down the building and they had to move, they had no choice. Or let's say somebody buys the building and decides not to renew their lease because they're leasing the building. They would basically potentially be out of business if they needed that revenue and couldn't continue with it for 2 years. Right? There's nothing in there that says that. Yeah, I would agree that would be a little harsh. I get the idea of having 2 locations. I get the idea of it being, but, you know, essentially, to your point, they could potentially buy First Street, for example, and have 2 locations because it's the location. But if somebody loses their lease because, I don't know, the people want to up their rent or they just want to take it over themselves, they're potentially putting them out of business if they're dependent on that revenue.
Correct, yep. So the plan use with the 2-year existence, good standing license is a zoning issue that carries with the land or the building, not the ownership. So yes, in that scenario, you are correct.
Well, I'd like to go back to what my old friend Peter Drucker said. You know, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. You know, and if what we're going to do is maintain the downtown First Street area as an entertainment district, then I think, you know, if that's important to our goals for the future, then we need to make our ordinances congruent with that so that as people grow and expand, it's easier rather than harder.
Okay, and I will tell you, we do serve as the model ordinance for many of our neighbors. Some that were years behind us, their rental spaces are filled with the gaming parlors. So we act upon the direction that the council gave us years ago when this model or this ordinance was created. And that direction was, as we mentioned, we don't want gaming parlors. The gaming system should be an ancillary use only in support after food and beverage, and that's why that 50% ratio is in there.
No disagreement with that. We just have discovered a few, you know, slight variances that we may want to cover now that we're aware of them.
Mayor?
Grant, a first example of a business changing hands and not losing their liquor license, their gambling license was the Hut.
Was it what?
The Hut. The Hut, yep, this is just recently. The Hut changed ownership. It was the original owner, it reverted, there were some processes, but yes, liquor license, good standing for 2 years, he came in, he applied, he got approved, he got a state approval, everything was good. So it's a pretty seamless process when you acquire a property that's already got the gaming terminals.
I just think it needs to be spelled out.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee or council?
I would
Bob?
just say that I think we should discuss, like, kind of back to Jim's point, we should address what's being proposed tonight. And then if others have an interest in looking at some of the finer details of second locations or business expansion, it sounds like the council would be up for that discussion, so we could have that at a different date and time.
Yes, I agree. As an administrator and Misty McDonald of these licenses, I would recommend that the council seriously address these loopholes. And if you feel differently about the overall gaming ordinance, we consider that a different step, that we have time to craft it.
All right. Any more comments? Public? All right. If not, would ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Parchman,
Yes.
Lotz,
Yes.
Small here,
Yes.
Campbell, Phony.
Yes.
All right. That passes, goes on to council. So if we have more discussions or amendments we want to do, we can do that at that time. But that moves on. 2.2, resolution authorizing intergovernmental agreement with the Illinois Comptroller's Office regarding access to the local debt recovery program.
Yes, so this is something that the state of Illinois offers to the comptroller's office, and they provide the opportunity for municipalities to provide them a list of past due delinquent accounts, accounts that we have tried to collect on. We must show that we've tried to collect. They have to be less than 7 years old and more than $10. We provide the comptroller's office this list, and then they will withhold, they'll check all their debt records and all of that. And if there's a payment that is due that individual through a tax refund, or if they win the lottery, or if they're an employee of the state and they get a payroll check, it is first given to us as a debtor. As a debt is then submitted to us. There's no cost to the city for this program. They do charge up to $20 to the person they're collecting from. But then they collect it, they retain that $20 and then provide us with the rest of it. There's a 60-day window that they would notify the individual that, you know, they give them the opportunity to protest, and if not, then it is sent to us, you know, on a weekly basis. We currently have about 269 bad debts, totaling about $32,000. We have tried diligently to try to collect them. No guarantee that we will get them. Part of our issue is if they're military, if they're not in the state of Illinois or in this area, we can't locate them. I mean, we go and we look at all records trying to locate them, but if they've moved out of state, we can't get them. However, if they move back and they have a tax refund, then we can collect it as long as it's not 7 years old. So again, this is something, we cannot use it for medical like EMS. They cannot collect past due for EMS. But we do want to try this for our utility bills.
All right, thanks, Sandy. Anybody on the committee have any questions about this? Council? Public? All right. If not, look for a roll call.
Can I get a motion?
Nope, I want a motion, yeah.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, got a motion, second, roll call.
Thank you. Parchman,
Yes.
Lotz,
Yes.
Small here,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Phony.
Yes.
Okay.
passes and moves on. We'll move to 2.3, resolution authorizing a transfer from reserves and budget amendment for the purchase of a tractor for the City of O'Fallon wastewater treatment plant.
Yes, this is something, Jeff is here, and if you want to explain it, Jeff?
Yes, the tractor at the wastewater treatment plant experienced unexpected equipment failure. One of the heads blew on the engine. This was a piece of equipment we were planning on budgeting to replace next fiscal year. With the need for that, we use it to, pull this up, to mix our lagoons and do other various operations at the plant, so it needed to be purchased immediately. We were able to go out, find one on a lot that was available for purchase. It was a lease that IDOT used for mowing over the summer. For $150,000, they were willing to offer us $35,000 in credit for trading in our other one. We looked at purchasing new. We would have been out till June or July for $165,000. So went ahead, made the emergency purchase for $115,000 for the new tractor, and then the intent would be not to include a replacement in this next budget year. So, just making the committee aware of this, but Sandy mentioned it would require this budget amendment and to be formally approved.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Anybody on the committee have any questions? Council? Jerry?
7,200 hours. Oh, the new, I'd have to get the exact number. It wasn't much. I mean, IDOT used it just this past season for mowing interstates. It was a limited number of hours, but I can get that information.
Okay, other questions from the council? Public? All right. No other questions. Ask for a motion to approve.
I move that we approve a resolution authorizing a transfer of fund reserves and budget amendment for the purchase of a tractor for the City of O'Fallon wastewater treatment plant.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Parchman?
Yes.
Lutz?
Yes.
Small here?
Yes.
Campbell? Phony?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Moving on to 3.1, preliminary fiscal year 25 budget. Sandy?
Okay, so this is just the beginning of our FY25 budget process. In January, this is where we get all of our preliminary revenue numbers. Our department heads submit their request. We have our big spend, large spend detail listing. This is, everything, as I said, is definitely preliminary. As a whole, the leadership team does not get together until January 30th through February 1st, and that's where we go through everything and actually balance the budget. But this does give us an overview of what we'll be looking at. What I am showing right now are our projected tax revenues. Most of these are through the general fund. And as you can see, there's not a huge substantial change in anything. Food and beverage, just a 4% increase. Sales tax, we have seen an increase, but this also includes the removing of Hyundai, Offenberg's Hyundai. They are building that property, so I've reduced our sales tax to reflect some of that. But even with that being said, we are showing an increase. Our state use tax, so if you remember, this was the one that kind of corresponds with the Wayfair Act, which is a per capita where any online sales, well now all online sales, we get our portion of it. Well, before that happened, we were getting a bigger portion, and when it passed, they said, well, you'll see your sales tax go up, but your use tax will go down. We really hadn't seen any of that. But yes, but now we are starting to see, so we have reduced it approximately 6%. You know, it's still up there. We'll continue taking it, but at some point, things are going to catch up. So we are reducing our use tax. Our state income tax is also a per capita, and it's based on IML's estimates. The last estimates they had were from September. We should be getting new numbers hopefully any day now. But based on that and based on our year-to-date, we are expecting about we are budgeting about a 7% increase in that. Our utility tax, even though we are seeing more residents, that has been staying pretty flat. But we do make sure every year Ameren, we send out a listing to them showing all of our residents. They compare it to their list. We compare theirs to make sure everything is on the rolls. So that remains at the 1.8 million. This is also the tax that the portion of it pays. This will be paying for the new bond payment. In the past, it paid for the public safety building. That last payment happened this month in January, so yay. But then it'll start with the new bond payment for the pool. And then the balance of that will go to the parks. Cable franchise, it's actually, we feel, based on where we've seen our numbers, that plateau is with the streaming. We saw a huge drop. So we're still looking based on actuals at about a 4% increase. Our phone franchise, again, this number, again, pay card phones and stuff still are not charged. Landlines, people bundle. So again, really no increase there. Video gaming proceeds based on our current actuals. And also we had increased the number, of terminals from the 5 to 6. So we have seen an increase in gaming proceeds, video gaming licenses based on the number of things. The video gaming push tax, so that was that ordinance we passed back in 2022. It's still kind of on hold. It's on the books, but it's something that IML still doesn't recommend us going forward with. Our Ameren franchise, so this is, again, our agreement with Ameren. That is a set amount until we get at a 3% increase in population. This was recently raised. And then our ag fee, mini ag fee, we moved that new contract from Constellation New Energy, and we've had several residents drop out, which is fine. So we are seeing a small decrease in that. Our other revenue projections are non-general fund revenues. Hotel motel, we are seeing an increase in occupancy. It has been very stable. With the new hotels, we're looking at a 9–10% increase. MFT, our IML estimates are not looking at any increase, especially with all the electrical vehicles. Part of that is part of that number. And then we have our Prop S, which is a ½ cent. That again is kind of based on sales. And then our parks and BOT, or Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund, those two numbers again is that other ½ percent. They each get a 1/4%. So those are at the 4%. So those are right now our projections. As we get into it, as IML starts putting out more numbers, those will be subject to change. The other item we have for you is our IT. The reason we do IT during this meeting is because this budget flows into every other department. And so we asked Dan and his team to provide us the numbers early, and if there's any discussion, any concerns, that we address it here before we get into the budget meetings, because as I said, everything, they have their own cost center, but then it's spread out through all the other departments. Dan Gentry and Tom Davis are both here from our IT department. They provide a very nice budget summary listing, what is going on, what they are planning, any major changes. And you can see most of it are planned equipment replacement projects, which are detailed in the large spend. The data storage replacement project is about $115,000, but they put money away from the reserves. The new projects that are in the large spend, we're looking at our budget book software. That's something that finance is looking at to make the process more streamlined. We do a great job. Robin Costello of my staff does a great job, but we use a lot of Excel spreadsheets. So we're looking at trying something different. City website replacement, we've talked about that. A carry forward is for some landscaping at the IT building, as well as a parking lot, paving at the IT building of $45,000. And then Parks and Rec is looking at replacement of some new software of $20,000. So this budget also has an increase converting one part-time IT technician to a full-time. So there's a small increase for salaries. And then he also includes, so first is there, Dan and Tom, did I hit the basics, or can you, anything else? Anybody have any questions on the IT budget for Dan or Tom? Because I've also included a listing of all of our service contracts, so you can see it's very complete. And this shows you all of the software that they're responsible for. And, you know, and what department uses it. So the list is very expansive. So that is the IT budget in a nutshell. So if there's any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Council? Public?
Okay, so what we'll do is move forward as we go into our budget process. We will include these numbers going forward in that process. The other thing we have I show is our Bill O'Fallon Trust projections. So you've already seen this actually during our Finance Committee meetings as well as our park. You know, we showed our projections, and then we are including the pool slide. That was part of the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund, what we're going to be using the funds for, as well as the Sports Park North parking lot of $600,000. So unless anything's different or somebody decides otherwise, this is what we'll be using the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund money for. And this is through the end of FY25. So we'll actually be spending some of that money before it comes in. So it's not like we have all of that available all at once. So that'll be the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund. And then we have our large spend detail. And this, again, are anything over the 15,000, vehicles, equipment, maintenance, buildings, you know, just about anything that is in our budget that we include in our capital expenditures, in IT, and you can just see the list. And this has not been gone through, so you may see it on this list now. It may not come through on the final budget. So again, we have not gone through anything. There may be projects that we will not be able to complete this year. But this is just right now for your review. A lot of these you've already seen because they've been in the CIP, and you'll see the second column where it says CIP project number. So if you have questions on what is that, and there's a CIP number, just refer to the CIP, and you can see where that project is. And that's a large spend.
Did you have questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of, there were a couple of items here that were, it appears to be duplicates.
Okay.
So I'm looking at, one thing that kind of puzzled me, in the column headed department, I've got a couple says choose one. So I'm not sure what that means.
Oh, we give them a drop down, so that could be part of the reason they didn't choose one, and that's why this is preliminary. But that
Okay.
looks like that would be a
Okay.
park project.
Just
Oh, no,
curious.
that's why, because that's the Sports North parking lot. And even though it's at the Family Sports Park, we're not sure if it's going to be at the time where
Okay.
it was going to be paid for.
I get it. Then a couple other places, I see Memorial Plaza signage. This one on page 2 is for 15K, and there is another for 10K on page 3 towards the bottom, coming out of Hotel Motel. And this one coming out of the downtown TIF.
Right, and it could be because we're doing both. It's one project, but we show where the funding source is. So So it may be a total of 30,000. For instance, the construction of the Public Works building, it's listed there twice for $2 million.
Right.
One is half of it's being paid out of water, so it says 31, and then the other other half's being sewer, so it's 34. So we break it out,
Okay.
because when we're doing the budget, we want to see what funding source,
Okay.
what fund it's coming
So
from.
total for that building is 4
Is
mil?
right,
Okay.
right.
And then the total for the plaza signage looks to be about 25.
Combined, correct.
Okay.
So again, if it has a CIP number with it, you could see the full amount.
Okay.
This is really more important for us when we budget, so to make sure it gets under the right funding department.
The other thing that I saw here was, you just said that the public safety building just paid the last payment. This is working like my cars. We're immediately having to repair it. You know, we've got a new roof and masonry work, and so it's like.
Right. The HVAC, right, so that's gonna be carried over, but it
Okay.
actually came in $1 million less, so,
Okay, good.
so that's a good thing.
Jerry?
Vehicles are purchased off the state contract, like replacements with police.
As much as we can. Unfortunately,
That's the first choice.
that's our first choice. And unfortunately, the delay in finding them is where the issue is. I mean, it may take 6, 7, 8 months. As a fire truck, we know that's why Brad just did the others.
Explorer,
If we can get it on state contract, that's where we go first.
in your budget, you have a police, the 51,750, say, for a police car replacement. Is that the total cost when you give it to the police department? Because I know there's the cost of the vehicle.
No, correct. So this is a vehicle, but then they have a lot of times under equipment, maintenance or vehicle equipment, then you'll see that.
Is there more than $15,000 worth of equipment in those things?
Sometimes you're able, if it's an old replacement vehicle, which most of these are, they just move it, and then you're paying for the cost of moving the equipment, so.
All right, any other questions? Council, committee, public? All right, go ahead, Sandy.
Okay, the new positions, this is something that we've looked at. This kind of goes through a process where we review it. The department heads provide us justifications, and then it is reviewed by HR. In administration, we go through. These are the current positions that we currently are looking at. Public Works, 2 new streets, telecommunicator or park specialist, library circulation, and then I mentioned the converting from part-time to full-time for both IT and a code enforcement officer. So both of those positions are currently part-time, and the need is to move them to full-time. And so these are currently the positions that we are looking at adding for this next budget year.
Is the park specialist the arborist?
No, park specialist, this is not an arborist. It is more of to help with the growth in the use of the turf fields and all the games. This is someone to make sure that the fields are set up correctly, the right distance. So it's helping with our other park specialists, making sure the fields are in order and handling the part-time seasonals.
Okay, so the arborist is not projected for at
No.
least another budget year after this, then?
Correct. Now, apparently, I think based on the justification, and Andrew is online, but they will have some of those horticultural skills to help.
Okay.
But this is not strictly an arborist.
Okay.
No, it's truly from the growth of the sports park, and, with getting the new turf fields, we've had a lot more tournaments and a lot more games that are going on than we had previously. So in order to keep up with the demand and all of the business at the sports park, a new person is needed for all that activity.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what's our process for validating requests for additional manpower?
So the process is the department heads provide us their personnel requests. We have a form for each one. There's a place that talks about what's their justification, why do we need it? So once those are all submitted, it goes through HR. So they'll evaluate as far as within the range, classification range. And then we also get together, Walter, Grant, myself, HR, and Herb, and then we talk about it. And then if we have questions, we bring the department head in, and some of them, they'll tell you, we bombard them with questions. So I think it's a very good process we do. Everything that goes through does not get approved. So we look at this, we look at history, where have they been, growth of, and their need. So that is the process we go through.
Any other questions while we're on that? All right, go ahead, Sandy.
The other two things I've included are our budget timeline. Well, and I don't know why this is doing that. But this basically, if you have any questions on where we're going to be going next, as I mentioned, we will start January 30th through February 1st. The leadership team, we meet together and we'll go through line item by line item, everything on that budget. And then we'll meet again to go over any additional questions that we may have. And then we'll include the budget, once it's balanced, we'll be including it in for our next budget meeting for the committees, February 26th. So the various committees that night will present their individual budgets. So it's very important, if you have something in particular that, you haven't already talked to us about, make sure that you reach out to me. Please reach out to me, not the department heads at this point, so that we can discuss it during a budget meeting. Because now is the opportunity for us to include it in our budget discussion. So please make sure if you have any questions, to reach out. So the February 26th and March 11th are departmental budgets. We'll have a final review by the Finance Committee on March 25th, and then we'll have the first reading April 1st, and then the second reading for final approval April 15th.
Jared, do you have a question?
Yeah, back on the new positions.
Uh-huh.
I was at a thing last Friday, and a nice lady from the fire department came and made a presentation on home fire prevention. It was an excellent presentation. Do we see those new position requirements for the fire department? She's full-time.
Well,
That position has been in existence for several years. She
Right.
is the new hire in that position, in the fire educator
Educator.
position. But that position's been in the budget for, I don't know, 5-6 years,
Yeah.
something. So she's brand new in the position, but the position itself isn't new.
right. So any new positions, so there may be a position that we approved. Okay. Correct. Yep. Okay, so that's really all on the preliminary budget. So the big thing, again, if you have any questions or think there needs to be something discussed during budget talks, please make sure you send those to me.
All right. Any questions on that before we move on? There's no vote here. All right.
Okay. All right, thank you on that. The next one that we want to talk about is a resident assistance task force. So this, if you recall, the city had budgeted $25,000 for water, and then based on their need, originally we bid 25 for water, 25 for electric assistance. Based on need last year, we increased the electric to 50,000, keeping the water at 25. We currently have $3,000 left in Ameren assistance. We have $17,000 left for the water. Ameren kind of can't put anybody out, so there hasn't been a lot of requests coming in due to the cold. However, we foresee that increasing again come March. Electric rates have not helped the situation. Rates have almost doubled, and so therefore, it's taking more in order to get, the pledges that are coming in seem to be more, and they're helping more due to that. So we thought it would be a good time to bring up the subject since we are during the budget season. Again, we started back in FY '23. where we did the 25 each. We found a need in FY '24 to increase the electric to 50. And now we have a balance of 3,000 remaining with several months left to go.
All right, so the way I understand that is this is matching. So if we put 25 up, 50,000 is the total between the not-for-profit and the city that would go toward that. So that just allows them to get more funds.
Exactly.
Okay.
They can use those additional funds to help additional people or for other needs that we don't provide, but the organization might.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions on this topic from the committee? Yeah, Andrew?
Sandy, the two amounts, will those stay in there and just roll over, or
No,
they
it's,
clear out?
each fiscal year, it starts over. Because
Well-
as with any budget number, it'll start fresh again, either at 25,000 and 50,000.
Well, we'll run out of the electric money.
Right, we will run out.
Right, but, okay, it's the water.
So the question is, with the council, is whether to keep it at 50 with the understanding that we'll likely run out again, or whether the council wants to increase that electric number.
And that is all through the general fund. So the water assistance is through our Public Works Department fund, and then the electric comes through the general fund revenues.
Is the water going to be on track, or will we have?
We all know, water is always, it has never been able to, or has always been under that 25,000.
So, yeah, we'll have plenty of money on water.
It's just, they're two different, I can't use enterprise funds to offset.
But yeah, we will not run out of the water.
We will not run out of water. We feel confident on a 25,000 budget number. I'm sorry?
As long as there's not like unforeseeable
Right, yeah.
summer.
Right, and one of the things, I mean, right now, we have John here with St. Vincent de Paul, but we have really pushed, and the organizations have pushed, the county has a LIHEAP and a LIHWEAP program, a water and a heat process through St. Clair County, and so I know they have really been pushing to go to the county, especially, you know, as the funds get lower, they try to utilize the county's funds rather than our funds.
Okay, that being said, any questions from the committee or comments?
Well, would the committee or the council, what is your interest in the fund? Whether, would you like us to keep it at 50?
What amount would you need anticipated to cover it?
Well, we thought doubling it to 50 this year would cover it, but it didn't.
But again, we didn't expect rates to double. You know, we continue to have the agencies, even after we run out of money, to keep sending those requests in. They're not fulfilled, but at least it gave us an idea, and that's how we came up with 50,000 last time. We actually added midstream. We had given them additional, you know, the way they're coming in, and right now, we're not getting as many because nobody's being shut off. So come March, and John, you can correct me, I mean, we're gonna see where we're gonna need more than 3,000. You know, how much more? That's a very good question, and that's where the council comes in. You know, this was something that we started, like I said, a few years ago as a way to help our residents. You know, we do right now, you know, 75,000. But it's definitely, you know, up for discussion where the council feels.
Well, if you're interested in finding out whether, you know, how much more it would be, and if you would like to consider an increase, we can work with the organizations, and perhaps when we get later in the budget process in March or April, we may have a better idea of what that number would be, and we can let you know if that's something that you want to look at.
And I don't know if John, if you want to open it up to him, if he has anything, if you
Yeah,
want
if you have anything you want to share about like how it's helping or what the benefit is to this, so we kind of get some emotional.
If you could come to the mic, please, and state your name.
John Hansley, I'm president of St. Vincent de Paul Society here in O'Fallon. It's really been a kind of a godsend to us to have this money available. It's allowed us to serve more people. We, right now, especially if we have, at least our process is, if we have individuals who come back maybe for a second time in a year, we're asking them that they get their LIHEAP application in so that we can use those county funds to help them rather than using the city funds or, or what we have available to us. So, yeah, Ameren will not turn power off right now, but generally we know when we get to the March, April timeframe, the amount of bills that we see out there, outstanding balances on, especially Ameren bills, is amazing at times, and it's overwhelming. So for a lot of these folks, going on a payment plan and then asking them to pay $50 more a month is a real kicker to them. So, yeah, what we have gotten through the city has been a tremendous help.
Thank you.
Do we know how many individuals we've actually been able to help?
We're working on that now. We have a meeting actually on Friday. If I recall, our last meeting, it's more than that. I think it was like 100 and some families. I'd have to pull that, but I think it was around 100, 125.
It was in excess of 100.
Yeah, and that was through, that was October is when we met then. So we do help a lot by providing that extra funding that allows the agencies, to utilize, because we only do electric and water. But the agencies provide, hotel rooms, they provide food vouchers and things like that. So not only by giving them this additional funding, it allows them to help the needs more than just the electric and the water. So that's why we wanted to bring it up. As Walter said, we can definitely, as we get closer to the budget, but I think we want to entertain the idea, the council, how you feel about us increasing it, if that is something you want us to look at.
And one other thing to add to that is we're not having to add any staffing to make this happen. We're going through the agencies and they scrub the applicants where we're not having to do that. So
Correct.
That's a cost savings to us, where the county, I believe, they have a person that's hired to do that. So we're not having to hire that. We're using the agencies who already got the tools and all that to run through that and make sure that they're qualified, and we're not just giving money to people who don't need it actually. So that's something to think about too, because if we had to expand this much more, we might have to hire a position, which would cost more than we're actually handing out. So something to think about.
I'm open to considering more. I like Walter's approach of having some more data to come back and actually put it into the budget kind of as a recommendation based on what we know.
And we will definitely do that, unfortunately, because they're not being shut off. We may not have, because again, that final approval. So, but we will definitely keep monitoring, and I'll get with the agencies. We'll talk on Friday if they can give me an idea of what they're expecting.
And we'll also get you the stats on who's been, how many have been assisted and
Right,
what
I'll
have
have
been
that.
given out. Since there's a meeting on Friday, we'll get all that together and we'll share it with the council.
Yeah, I would be interested, particularly knowing that the rates doubled, that it doesn't go quite as far.
Right, yep. And I think the 50 would have been fine had those rates not doubled, so.
Okay. Well, I'd say unless there's a opposition to look at it.
Okay, we'll do that. Oh,
Is there a single point of contact in the city for this?
a single point, well, I serve as the main person for the
Okay,
residents.
but I mean, if somebody goes to one of the churches coordinate all this,
Correct.
and if they can't help, do they all know who to call in the city?
Yes, they know exactly who to contact. But
Okay.
if somebody comes to our counter, we tell them, we say, reach out to St. Vincent de Paul, the First United Methodist, Faith Lutheran, the ones that we deal with all the time. We do not make the decision at all.
Okay, no, I'm just checking to make sure that the people at the churches know that the money is available. They do.
We meet quarterly, and so each quarter, those agencies, and that's why we meet on Friday, this week is
And my
our
other
quarterly
comment
meeting.
is that the Salvation Army has money that they get from Illinois American Water and from Ameren, and those are the dependable ones. The money that comes through the state ID, whatever it is absolutely screwed up. The Army doesn't have, the Salvation Army doesn't have a $300,000 or $400,000 float to pay money to people as they come in, that eventually will be paid by when the state grants get there. The problem is the state grants get all tangled up, and it's got to go through the county and yada, yada, yada. And so I'm curious to see if there's any, because they're a little bit reluctant to go out on too big a limb, giving out grants, cash money to people for utility and so forth when they don't have the money in the bank. Right. So if you see a large uptick from people that, if they say, I used to get this from the Salvation Army, you'll know why. It's because they're running out of money because the state hasn't got the grants to them.
Right, well, the money that the county gets is from the state. It's kind of a pass-through.
Yeah, it takes a long time for the money. See, it's been allocated in the state budget, it just hasn't got to the people who need it.
Right. Okay?
All right, anything else on that before we move on? All right, if not, 3.3.
3.3, a lot of these are information only. You have your IT status, performance, waste management. Again, they're all for information only. If you have any questions, please let us know. And then the treasurer's report, again, information only. There's really nothing on that. One thing I do want to add, under other business, just to give you a quick update, I heard from the county on the tax levy numbers. So if you recall, back in November, when we did the presentation, they've added about 1.4 million to the property tax roll in all this time, but they've also added 4.7 million to the disabled vet number. So our current DAV amount is currently 130,579,000. That did offset. We currently have less in our EAV than we did at the November 10th presentation. We are hoping that, again, they will continue to put these on the rolls until we get our final numbers. So, but that's where we are right now with the levy numbers. And also in speaking with the county clerk's office regarding the DAV reimbursement request, they have given those numbers to IDOR, and it's now basically in their hands. The county clerk is no longer involved. It'll go down to the treasurer, who then, once they get the money, it'll be dispersed. They have no idea when that'll be. Hopefully, beginning of summer, midsummer. No final numbers have been given to them. So that's kind of where we're at. We are putting it in the budget because we are expecting it sometime in FY '25. So those numbers will be included in the budget, but that's where we're at.
All right, any questions from the committee on that? Council? Jerry?
I have one on the grants list.
Yep.
I don't see the one from the Parks Grants Commission.
The which one?
Huh?
Which one, I'm sorry?
I think it was 75, no, it was 50 from the Park Grants Commission. We get one every time, but I don't see it in there.
We have not received the award letter for that yet.
I'm sorry?
We have not received the award letter for that yet.
You haven't?
No, we have not. In fact, last week, I believe, the mayor sent me an email that didn't have us listed, and I went through the website and found that we were in there, so we reached out to get that award letter.
You didn't get a letter?
We have not yet. We're waiting for it. We're blaming it on the mail and the ice. It's in the mail.
All right, any other questions from the council, public? All right, if not, anything else, Sandy, before we move to public comments?
Nope.
All right, that concludes all of our bullet points, but We do have public comments, so if anybody has any public comments, feel free to come up to the mic and we can address those. Last call? All right. If not, ask for motion to adjourn.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. All in favor to adjourn? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Just wait till